All right, what up, guys? Let's do this basic lines quiz review slash test for Algebra 1, quiz for geometry. Let's get the show on the road. First up, find the slope of each line. So there are two different main ways to find the slope. However, the easiest way by far is by counting. You always want to start with the left-hand dot, move to straight to the right until you run into that where the right-hand dot is, and then go straight up or down. So as a reminder, your definition here is going to be that change in y over that change in x. So because it's that change in y over that change in x, we first need to figure out what is that change in y, what is that change in x. So we're going to go 2 to the right, 1, 2. So we have 2 spaces to the right. So 2 spaces to the right means that our delta x here is in fact equal to 2. And likewise, we need now go up 1, 2, 3, 4. And that means that our did I count that right? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like hard to see with this camera and stuff. I'm just whining. All right, so that means that delta y is going to be equal to 4. So we have 4 divided by 2, which is equal to 2. And that is the entire question. The other method to doing this, if you for some reason don't want to do that easy counting method, is to use the entire formula with the coordinates. So the entire formula with the coordinates, this one, you may have remembered this one instead, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And this is the other method. By the way, either method is completely cool on the test. In fact, on this one, I'm not even going to be grading any work. I'm just going to be, did you have the right answer? Yes or no? That's the whole thing. So we have y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. We have to figure out what y2 and y1 are. It actually doesn't matter which one you label as each. This coordinate is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left and up 1. So it's going to be negative 4, comma 1. That's what that dot is. That's going to be our x1 and our y1. And this one over here is going to be to the left 1 and up 2. So it's going to be a negative 1, comma 2. And that's going to be our x2 and our y2. So our y2 minus y1 is going to be 2 minus 1. And our x2 minus x1 is going to be, what's that going to be? X2 is negative 1 minus negative 4. And that's going to be positive 1 over positive 3. And that is our final answer to the question. Please note, if the line is going down from left to right, it will have a negative answer. I just noticed that both of these had a positive answer, so they can have negative answers. That's okay. All right. So when you're doing a question like number 3, though, unfortunately, you have to use that y2 minus y1 formula. So just showing it one more time, it's exactly the same idea. I'm just going to write down that formula just in case you were not doing it this way. We have y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So writing it like all the way out, this x1 is negative 5, the y1 is positive 5, x1, y1, and our x2 is going to be that 7, and our y2 is going to be that 18. So it's going to be 18 minus 5 over our x2 minus x1, which is 7 minus negative 5. 18 minus 5 is 13. 7 minus negative 5 is 12. And we have a nice answer of 13 divide by 12. And that's okay. We have a weird fraction, another positive one. I wonder if we're ever going to get some negative action over here. Let's see if this one's going to be negative. I'm just going to think for ourselves for a second. Is it negative? I think we finally, no, I guess maybe not. Well, what can you do? All right. So on this one here, we have same exact idea, but again, you don't need to show tons and tons of work on a question like this. I'm not necessarily grading that work. I'm grading that right answer, yes or no on it. So see it. So we have our y2 minus y1 over our x2 minus x1. 7 minus negative 15 is going to be a nice 22. Maybe this is a negative answer. Let me double check. Did I make the right? Yep. All right, then we get negative 11 minus negative 2. That's going to be negative 9. And that's it. Can't do anything else with that. You get 22 over negative 9. Cool beans. Let's move on to the next question. So over here, find the slope of each line. These are in y equals equals mx plus b format, and m is equal to slope. So this one is an instant answer, no thinking involved. It's just that number in front of x, and you move on to the next question. This one over here is in what is called standard form. There are two approaches to this question. Approach number one requires you to memorize the standard form equation and the slope of standard form. So the idea is anything that is exactly in the form of ax plus by is equal to c will always have exactly the same slope. The slope will always be negative a divided by b. So in this particular question, we can just say that the slope must be negative of 1 divided by negative 5, and that's just going to be a positive 1 over 5 as our final answer. But again, this requires memorization where you have to memorize a new thing. If you want to avoid the memorization, you actually make it into the y equals mx plus b format by doing a little bit of algebra. So we're going to go ahead and start by subtracting x on both sides. We have negative 5y is equal to negative x minus 15. So I picked that negative x, that x that was positive, moved to the other side, it became a negative, and then now I'm going to divide all those terms by negative 5. So we're dividing everything by negative 5. So this is divided by negative 5. This one's divided by negative 5. This one's divided by negative 5. These negative 5s cancel, and we get y is equal to, remember, there's that invisible 1 there. Negative 1 over negative 5 is positive 1 over 5. X negative 15 over negative 5 is positive 3. Boom, we're done with this one. Let's move on to that next question. We're moving on to number 7. So number 7's got some brutal fractions in it, but that's okay. We're not going to be afraid of fractions. Instead, we're going to get rid of fractions first to make our life easy. And again, we're trying to find the slope of each line as we're doing finding the slope. So find the slope of each line. We're going to get rid of fractions completely. To get rid of fractions completely, we're going to multiply the entire equation by all of the denominators. We're going to multiply by 4 times 3, which is 12. So again, you multiply by all denominators, by 4 and by 3, which is multiplying by 12. When you do negative 1 over 4 times 12, you get negative 3. When you do 1 times 12, you get 12. When you have 1 over 3 times, negative 1 over 3 times 12, we get negative 4 with the y. And now this question is going to be a lot easier to work with. Let's do our quote-unquote switcheroo here, and we're going to have positive 4y is equal to positive 3x plus 12. We just switch those sides of everything. That negative 4y is a 4y on the left. That negative 3x is a positive 3x on the left. And now we divide by 4 because we need to get this into y equals mx plus b format. 3 over 4x plus 3. And this question is only asking for the slope. So our slope is, in fact, 3 divided by 4. Gorgeous. Moving on to our next question here. We got question number 8. So again, looking for that slope, we just got to put it into that y equals mx plus b format again. I'm going to first start off by using what's called the symmetric property. I'm going to rewrite the equation with the y and the x on the left. So I didn't actually do any math there. I just switch the sides, and now I'm going to subtract x on both sides, and I get negative x minus 1. Remember, there's an invisible 1 right there, so our slope in this question is, in fact, negative 1. Beautiful. Let's move on to question number 9. Find the slope of a line parallel. Parallel means same slope, so it's the same thing. M is equal to 2. Beautiful. We move on to the next one. Find the slope of a line perpendicular. As a reminder for perpendicular, perpendicular is meaning you create, that's the symbol for perpendicular, and it means that you create a right angle with the lines. You're creating a 90-degree corner. In terms of slope, though, your first slope is always equal to the opposite of 1 over the other slope if they are perpendicular to each other. So on questions like numbers 11 and 12, we're going to do those first because they're a little bit, number 10 is a little different. On number 11, we need to first put it into that y equals mx plus b format. So same thing we've been doing on all the problems. Take that 3x, move it to the other side, make it a negative 3x minus the 5. We're going to multiply everything by negative 1. When you multiply everything by negative 1, all of those negatives become positives. So all of these get multiplied by negative 1, and you're going to get y is equal to 3x minus 5. So our original slope is equal to 3. Please note that that is the same thing as 3 over 1, but we want the perpendicular slope. The perpendicular slope is the same as this, where you flip it upside down and make it negative. So our perpendicular slope is negative 1 over 3. Beautiful for our final answer. Over here, same exact concept on this problem here. We're going to multiply everything by a -1. So we have y is equal to -2x minus 3. Then our original slope is -2, which is the same thing as -2/1. And therefore, our perpendicular slope is +1/2. Beautiful. For our very last question of this type, this number 10 here, find the slope of this line. You have to remember that y equals 0 is a horizontal line. It's actually the x-axis. Every single time you have a horizontal line that's going left and right like that, that means that the perpendicular line, the one that creates a right angle, must go straight up and down. Straight up and down lines have undefined slope. So our perpendicular slope is undefined. Let's move on to the next question, number 13. So question number 13 over here, it says we got to sketch this bad boy graph. Let's do it. So there's multiple ways to do these questions. I'm going to do my favorite way first and then show you other ways after. My favorite way is the same way that pretty much every single math teacher most likely teaches this, the y equals mx plus b format, where this guy right here is your y-intercept, your letter B there. That means that you have the coordinates 0, 2, or in other words, on the y-axis, you place the dot at 2. After you place that dot at 2, we're going to use the idea that this number right here is our slope. So m is equal to 1/3, and that means that our change in y is 1, and our change in x here is 3. So our change in y, our change in x is 1/3. So in other words, we're going to go to the right 1, 2, 3 units and up 1 unit. So we can do this multiple times if you want. You don't need to have multiple dots. You only need to have 2 dots to make a line. Just because I want to make sure mine is as good as it's going to get, I'm going to put down every single dot that you could have on this graph. And I'm also going to use it to remind you that you can do the opposite completely. Instead of making it 1/3, you could make it -1/-3, meaning that you can go to the left 3 units and down 1 unit, left 3 units and down 1 unit. You can also do it that way and just connect the dots here. I'm going to use my ruler because I'm being good noodle for my video here. If I can find all my dots here, I can't. It's hard to see with this camera again. Me whining. Oh, well, I screwed up. What can you do? I'd still give something like this full credit on the test. I'm sorry, mine's a little bit off. What can you do? It's supposed to go through each dot. All right, so that is method number 1. Let's do method number 1 one more time because this one's going to have a situation where you need to actually use that concept of going the other direction. So method number 1 one more time just to see it. So we're going to start off at that number 5 right there, and then our slope is 6, meaning that we're going to go to the right 1 and up 6 because it's like 6/1. So if our slope is 6/1, we go to the right 1 up 6. We're way off the page. Because we're way off the page, instead of going to the right 1 and up 6, we need to go to the left 1 and down 6. So left 1 and down 6 units. How did I count that fast? What I actually did was 5 minus 6 to get myself -1. By the way, those are the only dots you can do on this particular graph, because if I went left 1 and down 6 more, it would again be off the page. So you can only get 2 dots for this particular question. That's all you can do, and that is your entire problem. Let's go ahead and do a question in a different way. So another way you're allowed to do these questions is by creating an XY table. The XY table is almost always going to be easiest if you plug in 0 for X. This is not always true. It's just a generally true statement. But if I make X equal to 0 in this problem up here, so I'm going to copy the question again first. And then I'm going to make my x equal to 0. So my x is equal to 0, and I have 2 times 0 plus 5y is equal to -15. And then we're going to have 5y is equal -15 because 0 times anything is 0. And then divide both sides by 5, and we're going to get y is equal to -3. Or in other words, I have the coordinates here. Now I have on my xy table, we'd have 0, -3. So I can go to my graph, 0, -3. There's my first dot. After that, we need to plug in different numbers for x and make them come out nice and pretty for our y value. So you could also plug in a number, say, I don't know, plug in, how about 5? So if you plug in 5, for instance, for x, let's figure out what's going to happen if I plug in 5. So if you plug in 5 here, you're going to end up with a 2 times 5 plus 5y equals negative 15. And subtracting 10 on both sides now, we get 5y is equal to negative 25, or y is equal to negative 5. So we have 5 comma negative 5. 5 comma negative 5 is this dot over here. We have our 2 dots. Play connect the dots, and you are done with this particular question here. There you go. So that is our method number 2. So our method number 2 is plugging in different numbers for x and figuring out what y is. And again, this method actually works no matter what you're graphing. It doesn't work just for straight lines. It works for parabolas later, works for absolute values. It works for any shape at all. You can always use this plug in x and figure out y. It's just that sometimes it's a lot slower, such as in this question. Let's go back to doing it that y equals mx plus b way. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this one with the y on the left-hand side. So I'm actually not changing any numbers or doing any math right now. I'm just rewriting it with the y on the left and the x on the right. So the negative 3y is on the left, and the 8x and 15 is on the right there. Now we're going to go ahead and divide everything by negative 3, just like we were doing on that previous page. When you divide by negative 3, you get negative 8 over 3x plus 5, because negative 15 divided by negative 3 is in fact positive 5, but 8 and 3 do not divide. So we have that 5 over here for our spot as our starting point, and then our slope is negative 8 over 3, meaning we move to the right 3 and down 8. So we move to the right 3 and down 8. There we go for our second dot. Yet again, we have a question where the only 2 dots that are on the graph are here. And sure enough, there is our final answer. Beautiful. Let's move on to question number 17. Question number 17 says, write the slope-intercept form of the equation of each line. So in this problem, you're currently in what's called point-slope format. So point-slope format is a really quick way of writing the answer, and it also just gives you a different starting point than your y-intercept. So giving your different starting point, all you really have to do is going to be something nice and easy. We're going to distribute that negative sign first. So you get negative x minus 2. And then we're going to go ahead and add 2 to both sides, and you end up with a negative x plus 0, which doesn't even need to be written. That is the entire question. It's that simple. Let's move on to the next one. So you're writing the point-slope form of this line that is through 1 comma negative 2 and parallel to this negative 7x minus 4. So what that's going to mean is our point-slope form of our line. I'm going to use the same one. The thing up above is use this version of it. So the point-slope form of the line is this: y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. And now we just need to figure out which one of these is. We know that this guy right here is our x1, and this is our y1, our first x and our first y. And we also know that parallel means same slope, so our m is negative 7. And then you just write the answer. You do not have much to do. Minus a negative 2, so minus negative 2 is equal to negative 7 multiplied by x minus 1. You do want to rewrite that as y plus 2 is equal to negative 7 parentheses x minus 1. And there you go. You're all done. On this next question, we have slightly more work to do, but really not that much. In this one, we are trying to go perpendicular to a negative 1 over 6. So remember that perpendicular slope means you flip it upside down and change the sign. So you get 6 over 1, which is really just 6. And we are again using that same formula, but this time I'm going to be using the fancier version, the way that I encourage you to get used to if you plan on going into those pre-calculus and calculus courses. So you're going to have f of x is equal to m times x minus x1 plus y1. This is a slightly fancier version of point slope form, but it ends up being the same thing. So we have a 6 in front here. X minus a negative is plus. And over here, you end up with a plus 3. Just to show you, in case you wanted to do it the other way would have been y minus 3 is equal to 6 parentheses x minus x plus 1, sorry. So that would have been like the other way if you wanted to write it like this. Should have circled these answers here. All right, we're almost done. We got one last question to do. Our one last question to do is our slope intercept form of the line. So we have our 2 points that we got to figure out. So first we got to figure out what our slope is. Our slope is going to be our y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, just like we were doing on the front of this test. So 2 minus -1 over 4 minus -5, and that's going to give us 3 over 9, which reduces to 1 over 3. Remember to use your calculator's fraction button if you are struggling with those fractions. Now, the easiest way, in my opinion, to do these questions is not by solving equations or doing anything like that, but instead just using that point slope form I have already taught you and simplifying. So we're going to go ahead and do that point slope form. So we're going to start with that quote unquote easy one again. So our point slope form is y minus y1, and I'm going to be using this dot. Please note you could use this dot and get the same answer. So y minus y1 minus a negative is a plus is equal to our slope multiplied by x minus x1, so plus 5. And now we are going to distribute and add. So our distribute and adding, we have y plus 1 is equal to 1 over 3x plus 1/3 times 5 over times 1/3 is 5/3. Now we subtract 1 on both sides. Once we subtract 1 on both sides of the equation, 5 over 3 minus 1 is in fact 2 over 3. Use your calculator if you need help with those fractions. This is method number 1 to doing this question. The other acceptable way of this question is going to be the equation method, where you solve y equals mx plus b. If you want to do it this way, here's how you do it. You still start with this same exact slope formula, and then you plug it into your y equals mx plus b, and you get 1 over 3x plus b, and then you're going to replace using either one of these numbers to solve for what b is. So in this case, we're going to use -1 is equal to 1 over 3 multiplied by -5 plus b, and that's going to be -1 equals -5 over 3 plus b. Adding 5/3 to both sides gives us 2/3 is equal to b, and then you just write this anyways. So it's the same thing, just I feel like it's slightly more effort, but you do what you want to do. I'm not going to stop you. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and peace out.